What's up, YouTube? This will be the second episode of kind of doing a light restore refinish on my 1986 Kawasaki JS550 Jetski. In this episode, we're going to do a lot of fiberglass work to the hull itself, fixing a bunch of different small cracks and stress cracks, little broken edges around where the hood sits, and a bunch of other little stuff. And then we're also going to go in and we're going to reinforce a lot of the areas that are common to crack and break on these. And we're going to finish it all off by painting the inside of the hull so it looks nice and fresh. This will be a little bit of a long one. I'm going to try and kind of fast forward and go through some of the fiberglass stuff, but I also wanted to show some of the detail of what I'm actually doing. Also in this video, you'll see a few things that didn't work so well. I'm going to include them anyway, just so if anyone else tries something similar, you'll know what not to do, and hopefully it'll be useful to someone out there. But hope you guys enjoy. Hey guys, so I want to give you kind of a before view of what we're looking at with the hood here. I noticed a little bit of it was kind of peeling away in the front here, and when I grabbed it and pulled on it, turns out a lot of it's pulling away in the front. So you can kind of see whatever they use to bond this and sealing stuff is all failing apart. The paint everywhere is all peeling off. So I'm just going to go through first and hit this with my little electric pressure washer, which doesn't do too much, but try and clean it up a little bit outside and then bring it back inside. And I'm going to take a look at it and see if maybe we reinforce the corners, because I know that when you land these on the side, the hoods have a tendency to flex a little bit and can let some water into the jet ski. So kind of see what we do there. I'm going to see if I can find what other people do. I know a lot of the old like race guys and stuff used to reinforce the hoods a bunch, but I'm not exactly sure what they did. So I'll see what I can find there. Hopefully I'll get this all cleaned up today while I wait for the paint and the jet ski to dry a little bit more, just because it seems a little tacky still. And then I'll hopefully put some fiberglass on this thing tomorrow. Plan to hopefully get the whole inside baffle system out of here, and then I'll plan to just re-glue it in. But knowing that the adhesive's failing everywhere, I don't want to redo the adhesive in half of it and then have the other half go bad and let water in. So see what I can do there. I'm not going to bring the camera outside to pressure wash this, but I'm just going to go wash it real quick and bring it back in and start trying to chip some paint off and rip some adhesive out. Guys, after screwing around trying to remove this plastic and get this adhesive off, it's quite a pain in the ass. I found out kind of the best way to do it is just take a heat gun and get it real hot, right where that adhesive is, and you're able to pry up on it pretty good. I'll do a small section here and then I'll go back to time lapse through the rest of it, because no one really wants to watch me struggle with this for 20 minutes. But works pretty well with the heat gun. Just get nice and real hot. I don't want to get too crazy and mess up the fiberglass or anything, or melt this plastic, but just get it nice and malleable, and then I'm able to get a scraper underneath it. That should be good enough to get a little wet bit. Yeah, you can kind of just slide that right in there and work our way around. I'm going to go back afterwards and pull all the adhesive off once I get this plastic piece out, but I'd rather get it all out now and redo it and know that I'm not going to have issues down the road than try and cut corners and hate myself later. Yeah, a little bit with the heat gun really did a ton. You can see some big chunks of that coming out. I think at some point someone tried to get this to go back in, kind of silicon all the way around it, because there's definitely the green adhesive and then there's a bunch of other adhesive on the outside. But heat Alright guys, after a lot of heat gun and a lot of scraping, we got this whole baffle piece out. Pulling it out, I noticed there's some little rips and tears. Obviously someone repaired this and filled it with silicone and stuff before, which just looks a little shoddy to me. This thing is pretty bubbled up and old, and I don't really trust this plastic too much. So I think what we're gonna do is kind of try and make a fiberglass version of this. Use a little cardboard aided design and make a shape roughly, fiberglass over it, pull the cardboard and stuff out, and then fiberglass it in. And hopefully that adds some structure to the hood itself. And then when I do that, I'll also add in some fiberglass around all the edges here and hopefully just stiffen this thing up a little bit. Hey guys, after a little further cleaning, I found a few cracks and things. This one over here, I know on the back side there was some paint damage, but that's a little more damage than I thought there was. Over in this corner appears to have some cracking, and then over here you can see the paint flaked off, so I'm sure it was flexing that corner too. So I'm probably going to go in and just reinforce these corners as well while I'm in doing some work. And there's also another crack up here towards the front. So this thing's definitely seen some age and abuse, but there's looks like a little more damage over here too. So I'm gonna keep working on stripping some of this paint off, get it all cleaned up nice, and I might put a quick coat of something on some of these damaged areas before I keep working on building up a whole new airbox baffle system. But kind of glad I took that piece off, because at least that one would have all been covered by that baffle piece. So if I left that in there, I wouldn't had good access to these, and I wouldn't have been able to really know the extent of the kind of damage there was. So good to find stuff, but just more work I got to do. So this was a little more of a pain in the ass than I kind of thought it would be, but I just didn't really want to use the original plastic that was all falling apart and clearly pretty fatigued. It's been next to the motor with a bunch of heat and stuff forever, so I figured I'll try and make a fiberglass baffle system instead and at least add a little structure to this hood at the same time. This was all a ton of pieces of cardboard and basically just taped together, and then I covered it all in blue painter's tape because the epoxy doesn't really like to stick to that. So hopefully I'll be able to remove from the finished part pretty easily. I didn't do the best job with these, but in the end I'm going to go back afterwards and do like a 1-inch strip of fiberglass all the way around the outsides where it bonds to the rest of the hood. So that should seal up real nice. The bottom piece, I'm going to do this piece fiberglassed in first, so this will get completely sealed off, and then the second piece will go on afterwards and it'll get sealed off to the first piece, kind of how the original was done. After I make these, I'll have to put the air vent tubes in, those guys over there, but that should be pretty easy. Next step here, I'm just going to clean up the workspace a little bit because I made a shit ton of mess playing arts and crafts. So clean all that stuff up, and then I'm going to start cutting some fabric patterns out. I'm going to do these with a polyester resin because it's not bonding directly to the Jetski. I'm just making the parts, and I'll use an epoxy resin when I actually bond it to the rest of the hood. The main reason I'm doing that is just because someone gave me a gallon of polyester resin. I've had no use for it forever, so I'm going to use some of that up, and I'm running low on my epoxy resin. And then I'll do this out of probably just chop strand mat, maybe with a nice layer of like cloth over the top of it if I can get it to fit well, but let's see how it goes. All cut out. I'm about to pour some epoxy, mix that up, and then we're gonna put those patterns onto our molds, add the epoxy and stuff on them. This is polyester, like I said before, and it's in just regular chop strand mat, not the fancy stuff to work with epoxy. And after that, we're gonna hopefully let those set up, come out good. I left a lot of overlap over all the edges. I'm gonna trim off afterwards just to get a real nice fit for that. Hopefully that turns out good. We're going to set those aside, and then once that's done, I'm going to cut all the little patches and stuff for the hood, and then get that epoxy going and get that drying as well. Let's see how it goes. In the last clip you saw me putting some fiberglass on the molds that I made to recreate the baffle system inside the hood. Unfortunately, right after doing that, I had to go on a work trip, so I've been gone a few days, so these have had enough time to fully cure and everything. I'm dying to see how they turned out. Obviously, these molds are definitely not gonna last more than one use, and they're probably gonna pull apart pretty quick. They were just made of cardboard and duct tape and everything else, but got the shape pretty damn good. And then I screwed them to a piece of wood just to make working on them a little bit easier. This was the second one I did. I got the ratios a little better. I didn't have any small measuring things, so I was kind of just putting a few drips of the MEKP in. First one I did way too much, and it was curing super fast. Because of that, I ended up having a few spots that didn't come out the best. I think a big part of that was just I cut the fabric in not the most ideal way, and I'll do that differently next time, but because of that I ended up getting a few bubbles. You can kind of see one over here and one on this side. I'm gonna have to sand those down, which will be a little annoying. Another spot where some of the epoxy gelled. I don't know how old this epoxy was. It was given to me and it was open. The top like inch out of that gallon was all completely solid and hard. I probably should have just waited and either, not epoxy, but polyester. I probably should have either used epoxy and said that I had that I knew was good, or bought a new batch of the polyester stuff that hadn't been open forever and clearly hardened up. I actually had to drill through the top layer in the container to get it to pour out. But here was nothing. I'm first going to take a flush cutter tool and just trim all the excess off. And then once all that excess is gone, I'm going to go back and pop it off the mold. And I'll be able to kind of test fit in the hood. What I'm trying to do is be able to test fit it now before I put all my reinforcement and stuff inside the hood, because I got all that stuff cut. So I don't want to have wet epoxy and wet fiberglass stuff in there while I'm trying to test fit all their parts. So I'm going to come cut these out, see how they end up looking, and we'll go from there. After a quick trim, these pieces fit pretty damn good. You'll notice a few spots here. The tape actually came part of the part. Epoxy must have soaked through, but that's in the fiberglass. I grind it out. I didn't fight too hard on any of the loose stuff either. Anything loose I pulled off, but you can see there's still some more other stuff. Overall, they fit great. I took a little, when I made the mold, I traced this red line you can kind of see here was where the flange was. The old piece had this flange all the way around the outside, so I had traced that flange, which is why the red marker looks nowhere near our actual part. But our part's pretty damn close to what I was going for, right about like a ½ inch inside that. Planning on doing is, after I reinforce all these spots where there were cracks and holes and whatever, I'm gonna go back, trim these again, make sure they fit perfect. Now I'm gonna be adding some more fiberglass to this hood, and then I'm gonna go back in and basically just put like a 1-inch flange of material glass all the way around the border here to seal it all up. I'm going to start with this bottom one to seal that chamber from the second chamber, similar to how it was before, and then this top piece will get sealed along here to tie the two pieces together. And then most likely I'll probably end up putting a layer of cloth or something over the top of these, just to kind of give it a better appearance and stuff, and also tie it into the sides. Maybe give the hood a little more strength, having some solid material there instead of just ripped up shitty plastic. Pretty excited how those came out. I wasn't really too sure how it was going to work, having quick cardboard molds for that. So we're about to start reinforcing, pairing this hood. I've got all my patches laid out here, increasing in size. Everything's numbered and then corresponds to all the numbers and stuff I put inside the hood, so I don't miss anything. And then I've got 2 strips of 1708. These are 2-inch strips. I'm gonna start at this red line, which is where the hood basically changes and has a little bit of a curve in it. I'm gonna put one of those on each side just to add a little more strength. And then I'm gonna put these cut pieces that'll cover the whole side down to the center. The idea with this is basically, I've read that a lot of people said, like, if you come on a hard landing on the side of these things, they can bow enough where it'll actually let water into the hull. So I'm trying to add a little rigidity so it's not as pliable when you're pulling on it there. So I just want that extra rib of fabric in there. On the long edges, these short edges really don't have any flex to them, and you have the strap going right down the center of it, so I'm not really concerned about that. I am going to put a few just little strips in these corners just while I'm here, and basically blend in the side, the bottom, and up in this corner a little bit, and hopefully just get a little more rigidity out of it. the outside just with a thickened epoxy paste. And then on the bottom side of that, I took my 3D printed pieces, put them down, and then wrapped all the way out around with chop strand mat. And that's super strong, so that's not going to break. I was worried for a while when I put the PVC in about how I'd secure that, but giving a little more surface area to that connection really helped, and it's just really stable. Overall, I'm pretty damn happy how these came out. There were a few spots I had to touch up, but the fit's pretty much perfect in there. There's a few little gaps. There's one over here that I'm going to have to fill a little where the air intake comes in, but I'm not too worried about that. My plan for this is I'm going to glass in this piece just so that I can seal up both sides of it along here, and I'm going to do probably chop strand mat all the way around the perimeter. First, I'm probably going to make a thickened epoxy putty and just fill that in. So I kind of fill that gap all the way around, and then I'll press the chop strand mat into that, wet it all out, and get a nice connection. Then once I'm kind of happy with that section, I'll place this piece back in, and then glass all boundaries around that, and hopefully everything goes well. I'm kind of real excited to see this thing finished. It was one of those projects where I wasn't really planning on making these parts, but I'm really glad I did, and I'm really happy how they turned out. Way better now. The cracks are all fixed, the sides are reinforced, and the new Fiberglass Baffle is solid. Much better than this old piece of crap. But took some time, but now it's built to last. I'm not worried about any water getting into this thing through the hood. I hope you're enjoying the process so far. Please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment and let me know that you like what we're doing here. Thank you, and can't wait to do the next one.